Friday Night Racing
on Off the Ball.
Brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Love every racing moment. Visit hri.ie.
And we are back. You are very welcome along to this week's Friday Night Racing, and we're very excited. We've got a great guest. Joseph O'Brien is with us. Joseph, how are you?
Thanks, Sharon. You?
I'm very well. Very excited about this fact that racing is back. Also with us, as ever, is Johnny Ward. Johnny, you must be very excited.
Yeah, it's fantastic to think that after such an absence we have two Guineas meetings at the weekend, and just I suppose the swing in the country today towards reopening. This is by far the best, most exciting day of lockdown so far, I think, Ger.
Yeah, it's getting there, isn't it? Joseph, just in terms of let's get this out of the way first. Just in terms of exactly what has been happening from your perspective to make sure that everything is ready and safe to go. Are there specific things you've been working on? It's a whole added wrinkle to getting the horses ready and to making sure that they're going to perform. But from a safety perspective, can you just give people a bit of reassurance that everything is all going to go to plan?
Yeah, I suppose since the start of the lockdown, we've implemented pretty strict safety measures in the yard. So at this stage, all the staff and everyone are very well used to dealing with everything insofar as the amount of disinfecting, social distancing, and etc. Everyone has been doing these things for the last number of weeks, and by the time we get to go racing on Monday, you would be very, very confident that it'll be almost second nature to people at this stage. Yeah,
and look, Johnny, we've talked about this a good bit at this stage, but racecourses, social distancing is relatively straightforward given the actual scale and size and area of racecourses, and again the fact that they had 10 separate race meetings to trial this out at the end of racing. It should make it easier for the restart.
Absolutely, Ger. I felt that, having gone to one of the meetings, I felt that it worked quite well. But, I generally think in light of what's happened today, we need to look at accelerating this now, because we'll have a situation at the Guineas where effectively only a select number of, literally 2 or 3 journalists can go, owners can't go to the Guineas, a 90 million current development. From what's happened today in the country, I feel that people are definitely gradually opening up not even gradually, opening up the country very fast. And I would hope that now racing could be able to open up quicker as well, because to my mind, the regulations imposed on racing in terms of the restrictions look very, very archaic, and racing will be no problem whatsoever because we observe social distancing brilliantly. And hopefully now, I spoke to an owner who was very disappointed he couldn't go to Naas to see his horses run. I spoke to a journalist who had suffered a bereavement recently and was really looking forward to going to the Guineas, but he can't go because of restrictions. So hopefully they will open up quickly as well, because I've no worry about racing on any score. And as we've seen from Leo Varadkar today, the country is making dramatic steps to open up basically in all sectors.
All right, let's talk a little bit about what it's actually been like for you then, Joseph, getting horses ready for an unknown date. Obviously, you were kind of always a sense and a hope that it would be the end of June and maybe the start of June. How do you normally plot courses, and what was the difference between plotting a course for a horse who you didn't know exactly when the end date was going to be?
Yeah, well, I suppose, Ger, firstly, we were hoping that it might be at some stage in May, and then the goalposts are moved back to June, and I suppose we would nearly always be working 3 to 4 weeks in advance of whatever race that we're targeting. Certainly from the previous race onto the next race, you would know exactly where you're going. But in a lot of horses' cases, we would be working 4 to 6 weeks back from where they're going to run. So I suppose most horses have missed 1 or 2 runs, but we basically kept them all the flat horses in routine training. They weren't doing any hard work, but they weren't losing any fitness. And then once it became a bit clearer when we were going to get back racing, we gradually increased the workload at home, and as the provisional summary was released, we were able to map where exactly what horses were likely to line up. So listen, it hasn't been ideal, but everybody has been in the same boat, and it is what it is, and we're really looking forward to getting back racing.
One of the questions I have, and I think again it's one of those things that you don't understand unless you're actually in the industry, is that there are certain horses for whom certain times of the year are going to be absolutely vital, and the first couple of months of the flat season might be a time to shine for a horse that over the rest of the year some of the other horses catch up on. Is that because those races didn't happen? Is that all delayed, or is that just nature, that the horses who are going to be stronger later in the year are going to have a career year in some respects because the early part of the season when they weren't flourishing has now been wiped out?
Yeah, well, I suppose the probably the main section of horses that will suffer from this is the kind of early precocious 2-year-old types. The vast majority of 2-year-olds won't be affected hugely because a lot of them wouldn't have ran until mid to late season anyhow. But your small, early maturing, fast 2-year-olds, a lot of them probably will have missed their window, or certainly will find it difficult to keep up with the maybe stouter bred animals that usually would come out towards the middle part of the season. But like I say, it is what it is, and it's great to get back racing. But for sure, there is a section of animals that will have almost missed their window, or certainly will find it more difficult now when racing does get back.
Are any of those precocious 2-year-old colts, do any of them go on to have stellar careers as well? Or is it traditionally the precocious colts who end up being overtaken? Is that just the career arc of a particular vein of horse?
Not in particular, not really. A lot of them can go on and win at Ascot and become good sprinters in the future. But there is certainly 2-year-olds every year that you see showing up very well, maybe in April into May, and by the time July and August comes around, they've been passed out, and they were just stronger physically, mentally, and more mature than the animals that they were racing against, and they got caught up with. So and a lot of those animals possibly would have come from breeze up sales or were that type of animal. So that's probably the section of the market that would have taken or will take the biggest hit in the short term.
It's interesting as well, Joseph. We'll say the first season stallions that kind of would have had that window of showcasing their credentials as stallions effectively didn't have it.
Yeah, absolutely. They are certainly will be shortened considerably. But you'll find in regard stallion-wise that the cream will rise to the top anyway. But there's no doubt that there will be stallions that would specialise in that type of animal, and they will find it tougher than maybe under normal circumstances.
Again, that kind of those precocious colts, can you tell they're precocious colts from number one, the stallion, but also then how they're actually performing on the gallops? So you're kind of like, we got to get these ones out early because look, they are physically strong. Is there a science to that as much as just looking at them and seeing them?
Well, no, I suppose that a lot of it, you would be able to make an educated guess when you see the physical of the horse and you see his pedigree, and the dam side is as important as the stallion. But really and truly, it's when you get them into training and the feel that the trainer gets for the animal, and they'll get to know the ones that are mature and are ready to kick on with and they're enjoying their work. You get to feel the ones that are ready for it and the ones that maybe need a little bit more time. So I wouldn't say it's a science, but it's a feel that you get as the animal's work is increasing. And
I guess you kind of need to have both in your yard at the same time so that you know that, okay, this one is a slightly slower maturing and this one is actually in training much quicker, much faster over the ground, much more ready to go. Yeah, exactly. And the riders' feedback, the guys that ride them work every day, they'll give you very solid advice along the way. And ultimately, I suppose it's when you run your first 2-year-old, it's only then that you really get a guide as to where you are compared to all the other trainers in the country. Until then, you're guessing slightly. And in your own yard, I suspect, as well. You're obviously... Yes, absolutely.
Sorry, Joseph, you're obviously a very good person to have on today for a myriad of reasons. How many owners would you have roughly in the yard?
Oh, Johnny, to be honest, I don't know, but it's a high number. Like, I'd imagine we would have well over 100 different owners anyway. But when you take in all the different syndicates and things, I actually don't know, Johnny.
So say, like, has that been tricky for you? Because I feel that owners have, in some respects, suffered more than nearly anyone in this because they've had to continue paying their bills, and now prize money is obviously down because the shops have been closed, and they're coming back in very competitive races with tough prize money conditions. They've obviously had to pay for their horses to stay in training, even though for a while we didn't even know when racing was coming back. So has that been problematic for you, just kind of keeping owners on side and telling them to hang on in there?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I suppose the vast majority of people could kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel. But you have to say that the owners have been hit very hard, and now that the racing is back, they're not even allowed to go racing, you know. But like you said a few minutes ago, I'd hope that those things will come around. Those changes will come around fairly soon, and we'll be able to go back from there. But I suppose most of our horses, Johnny, just kept in routine work. The smaller syndicates, maybe the summer national hunt type horses, they all had a good break and are coming back into their work now.
And how would the weather have affected things in the sense of, you know, we've had 2 months now of virtually no rain, very hot weather. Did the horses kind of come forward a bit differently? Are they looking differently? And even in terms of the land at home, it must be quite different. It normally would be early June.
Yeah, I think the animals are in good shape. They look very well. Like you say, the weather has been great. We caught a good bunch of hay last week and got all of that done. And just another thing on that side of things, Johnny, we really ramped up our communication with owners and videos and pictures and updates, right. And just to keep everyone in the loop and to see that, you know, we're going to be back racing soon, and thankfully we are.
I think that's one of the things as well, Ger, about the lockdown, in that it maybe forced businesses to behave slightly differently, and even in racing and in the sales situations, you know, it's gone a lot more sort of audiovisual in terms of using your technology and kind of embracing what might become the future, and in any case keeping owners informed in different ways.
Yeah, Joseph, I suspect that that's one of the benefits of being one of the younger trainers on the scene as well, that actually this is technology you've been using all your life.
Yeah, absolutely. Jerry, I suppose all of our owners, everyone gets some kind of an update at least every second week. A picture, video, the animal jumping out of stalls, grazing, schooling, working at home, going away from home, whatever the case may be. So we have people that do that, and it's very important, and I think that's for sure that's the way things are going, and you have to feel involved in the process, and you can't be seen with your own eyes.
Yeah, that's 100%, and you can kind of see exactly how that would be something that you have a bit of an advantage over, because, as I said, it's technology you've been using. I saw you guys did a challenge. I don't know if it was 2 furlong or 1 furlong that you were running against. I don't know who you were running against now. It might have been Donegal, it could have been somebody else. But you managed to win that race anyway, and I thought you were in decent enough shape for somebody who is no longer a full-time athlete the way you were when you were a jockey. Which did get me thinking, are you still riding out, or how do you stay fit, or like what on a personal level are you doing to make sure that you're fit and healthy?
Yeah, no, it was one of the lads here, Sean Corby. It was a Do It For Dan challenge, so it was for a good cause, but I'm absolutely in no good shape at all, Ger.
Well, you're in better shape than me, Ger, I'd say.
Well, we used to play 5-a-side once a week or twice a week, but that's about as much physical exercise as I get to do in the week.
So, do you ride out? That was the other thing that kind of struck me then afterwards.
No.
And did you stop riding out the day that you stopped being a full-time professional jockey?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I haven't rode out consistently for a long time. I ride out on a Sunday morning, just because I enjoy it. I ride a couple of lots on a Sunday, but no, I haven't rode out consistently since I stopped riding. And I suppose we have enough to be thinking about and doing in the morning, and organising and overseeing the lot, that you can't really ride out with the string and see everything at the same time.
Yeah, because I remember seeing a documentary where your dad was in the Jeep watching the horses go along, kind of just keeping an eye on everything, and that did strike me as, you can't be in the middle of that, and being player manager is almost impossible, particularly when it comes to that bit of the morning where you're gathering up that information on each of the horses.
Yeah, exactly, and liaising with all the staff, and obviously there's a team of people on the ground in the yard all morning, as well as the guys riding out. So and then you have, well, we're going to have entries and declarations and things to be doing in between lots, and so there's no shortage of things to do, and for me anyhow, I wouldn't be able to ride out every lot and see enough and be able to be in touch with enough people.
There was two significant things I wanted to talk to you about. One is I've been listening to a lot of coaching podcasts at the moment about how people in different walks of life actually continue a lifelong learning. And I was interested in when it comes to you, like everything that you've had in your life has prepared you for this, because you've been around the industry since you were born at a very elite level. And yet at the same time, I'm sure you want to continue to learn your own stuff and to broaden your mind as much as you possibly can. What do you do to stimulate the brain and to get you thinking of ways that you're going to be able to get an edge over, some of the best trainers in the world who might also happen to be in your family?
Yeah, well, I suppose the first thing is not to dwell on good days or bad days, and we always are very quick to move on and think about the next winner or the next day's racing. And every horse is different that's in the yard. So it's very hard to say that I'm going to make this change and it's going to change the whole string, because every horse is treated as an individual, and you come up with a work program, a rider that they get on well with, and then you try to put them in the most suitable race. So I suppose the one thing that you can take from a lot of different sports, and it's probably similar in a lot of management styles, is the mentality of people and the attitude of the people that you work with every day, because that's very important in our thing, because the horses ultimately feed off that,
So do you find that you're getting better with more experience about that? Just even kind of asking different questions and dealing with people differently, understanding that the temperaments of the people you're working with are as important as the temperaments of the horses?
Yeah, I think anyone that says that they don't try to get better or are always trying to learn more about something is lying. So we're always trying to take the next step and always trying to learn more and do things better. But ultimately, you always have a lot to learn.
This is the extraordinary thing about you, and even more so Donica as well. You're the boss of people, very many of them who are obviously a good bit older than you. So you can imagine a football manager, maybe when Stephen Kenny took over at Longford, he was 26 or 7 or something like that. And, even players would have been older. So was it difficult for you to get kind of respect straight away, or were you always just straight away the boss from day one?
I suppose we always. I don't really feel, or I don't try to perceive around the yard that I'm the boss as such,
right.
Because we're all in it together, and we're all trying to achieve the same thing, and we have a common goal. So we all get on very well. There's a very good feel around the yard. And like I say, we're all trying to achieve the same goal. So if there's problems, if anyone has a problem, we discuss it and we see what's the best way to solve it. And ultimately, you're always going to have personality clashes and different things in the yard. But we're all kind of trying to achieve a common goal. So we're in it together more so than anything else.
And are you? Sorry, I was going to ask you. Like, who are you reading? Are you reading books in leadership from Alex Ferguson? Are you listening to podcasts where, there are people out there who have kind of been through similar experiences, or is it all kind of just having conversations with people you trust?
Well, I to be honest, I don't read many books, but I really enjoy all different sports documentaries and about all prominent sports stars. And I think there's always little things that you can pick up, even in sometimes in places that you never thought you might. But I think there's no substitute for experience, and I dealt with something that happened a few weeks ago one way, and that didn't work, so maybe I'll deal with it different the next day. You know what I mean? So I think it's very hard to substitute that.
Yeah, well, so that was kind of the second thing that I wanted to ask you about. Now that this has worked out for you, now that you're able to be a successful trainer, what pressures did you feel, retrospectively now, looking back from the vantage point that you have, where, you know, you've done such incredible things as a trainer already? Did you feel intense pressure at the very start to live up to your career as a jockey and also the surname that you have?
Yeah, well, I suppose I don't feel any different now than when I started training. You always feel like you have a lot to prove, and I think it's very important to feel that way as well. But we have a good system in place, and we have great staff, and the routine is fantastic, and everybody is pulling together. So I'm very confident now that if we have an animal, we're well able to get the best out of them. But I don't ever feel any less pressure than what I did a few years ago, because we have had big winners in the past. Because ultimately, it makes no difference. It's in the past, so it's all about whatever happens next week.
Can I ask if there are slightly different things, though? That actually, the point you made about we have confidence now that if we have a good animal, we're going to be able to get a good performance from them. That was something you didn't know the first day that you got your licence. I mean, you probably had an idea that, and you'd probably been doing a little bit around when you were still a jockey, so you kind of had a sense of it. But when ultimately it's fully your responsibility on the big day, when that horse is under starter's orders for the first time and your name is typed out in print alongside it, is that pressure gone? Or is the confidence that you get from having that success something that you can bank?
Yeah, I think it is something that you can bank and you can look back on, but I don't ever feel any less pressure because we've had big winners in the past. You know, sometimes you might be more confident that you made the right decisions when something doesn't work out. That you say that has worked before, but with that horse we'll have to do something different the next time. But I don't feel like we're under less pressure, or we feel lackadaisical in any way because we've done it in the past. It's all about, for us, it's all about the next one, and because it's happened before, we don't feel any different about it making it happen again.
You are quite pronounced on that as well, because like when you've 3 winners in 3 different continents one weekend, you've the only Irish winner at the Breeders' Cup. How much can you enjoy that? Because like literally you'll have a winner and you might have 12 runners, 6 of them jumpers the next day, 6 of them in Downpatrick. So do you really have much time to actually wallow in victory? Because you seem to be a man, right, that's over now, we have to move on to the next winner.
Yeah, well, I suppose we do enjoy the good days, and we really do appreciate them. And we understand how lucky we are to be in a position. I have a fly here, and I'm going to kill it now in a second if I can. But we're in a position to we're in a privileged position that we have nice horses, and that when we have nice winners, we do enjoy them and appreciate the good days. But we are always looking at the next one, and I suppose racing is a little bit different in a lot of sports in that you do probably have 75-80% losers. So you never really get too far ahead of yourself.
Well, it's also, I think people maybe outside of racing don't understand the team aspect to it. So you might have a winner at Naas on Monday, and that goes down as, you know, ridden by whomever, trained by Joseph O'Brien, but it doesn't actually reference, we'll say, there's a groom, there's somebody looking after that horse at home, somebody might be riding it every morning on the gallops, and people maybe don't fully appreciate how much joy they get out of the victories as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And the horse has an owner who's obviously, when they have a winner, they're obviously very happy and they've had a great day. But you probably have 5 or 6 owners and jockeys to speak to that haven't had a winner. So it's a great game to keep you grounded.
Apart from staying grounded, there's also moments of great excitement, like this particular moment where anything is possible. That string of horses that you have in the yard for the last 6 weeks, getting them back up to the point where they're ready to go. There could be anything right now, and that's the best part about being a sports fan, is just that bit in pre-season where you're hearing things have gone well, you know, team has made some signings, or you've got some good horses, and everybody is a believer that this is going to be your season. What are you looking forward to most about the next couple of weeks, the return to racing itself, and any of your particular horses that you're like, I can't wait to see what this one's going to turn out to be?
Yeah, I suppose the first thing will be getting a handle on it and where we are with our 2-year-olds. So we think we have some nice horses, but as they run, we'll get an idea about how nice or not so nice they are. And really just getting them all started, getting the first run of the season out of the way, and being able to make plans from there, you know. So at this stage, they'll all be having their first run of the year over the next few weeks, and then hopefully some of them will do well, and we'll be able to build on that.
Jared, that's actually code for I have an outstanding bunch of 2-year-olds, can't wait to run, have absolutely no doubt that I'm going to have a very good year. Isn't that true, Joseph?
Well, it's not. So we never pair our 2-year-olds up with all the horses. The 2-year-olds would only ever work with 2-year-olds. So really, we only amongst our own crop, we think this one is better than that one. But whether it's a 85 or a 75, we really don't know what it's working to yet until we start running them and we get a guide for it. So listen, please God, we have enough nicely well-bred horses that there will be some nice horses in there, but at this stage we don't know how nice they are.
What are there are a couple of aspects to this season that are kind of quite abnormal or very abnormal. One is the fact that obviously the early 2-year-olds didn't get their chance to run, and that is often an opportunity for other trainers to sort of maybe strike while the iron is hot before other trainers come into being. There's obviously as well the soft ground form earlier in the season is completely out the window. It looks like we won't have soft ground for the foreseeable. So do you know what it's going to be a kind of a compressed season? And also I guess your 2-year-olds are taking on your dad's 2-year-olds now would be obviously more forward than they would be earlier in the season. So it's going to be an intriguing battle in that division.
Yeah, it's I suppose, Johnny, not only in racing, but in all sports, it's going to be very different for the next few months. But I think it's going to bring about its own positives, and the racing will be so competitive. There's going to be big fields, all the best riders in all the best races. And I mean, I'm really looking forward to seeing it and to see some of the racing in the UK the last few days, and the next few days is fantastic. So it's great to be back, and it's great to have some sport back, and hopefully slowly more sports can come back in the coming weeks.
Did you watch The Last Dance?
Yes, I did. Yeah, I watched it all in about a week.
One of my favourite bits was that there was a better basketballer than Michael Jordan for about an afternoon, and it was his older brother. His older brother beat him in a game, and that was it. That kind of sparked the drive and the naked determination to be the best in his family. And I'm interested now that your little brother is training. Was there any kind of sense of, I better keep an eye on this just in case? What happens if my little brother turns out to be a better trainer than I am?
There, Ger.
No, well. I suppose I thought Michael Jordan's attitude, I think when he went home from school or college at one stage when he was a kid, and his coach said when he came back after that summer he was a different animal altogether, because he worked so hard for the whole summer to improve on every aspect of his game, and I think his mentality was incredible, you know. But I suppose we're very lucky that Donica has some nice horses, and so do I. And I really do. I'm delighted when he has a winner as when I have a winner, and we really do wish each other the best. And we're very good competitors. That when we win, we say each other well done, and when we get beat, we know that there'll be another day. So we wouldn't be going to kill each other or anything.
What's the vibe you're getting from how he's getting on?
I don't know. I think he's going well. I think he has some nice 2-year-olds. Obviously, the few horses that he ran on the all-weather all ran well, and he had his first winner out of the way, which is always nice to do. And I'm sure he's excited for the next couple of weeks, as we all are. Sibling
rivalry does drive you on, though. It's a real thing. Like, you know, if he is out of the gate fast with loads of runners, not that you can actually do anything about it. You can't work the horses any harder, but certainly it'll give you an extra pep in the step. Yeah, I think we probably get a little bit more competitive when we're playing soccer or playing golf or whatever the case may be. We get fairly, or hurling or whatever sports we're playing together, we do get very competitive. But in racing, we kind of understand that we do our best, and then whatever happens on the course is out of our control. That's fair enough. Ivan Yates heard you were coming on, specifically wanted me to ask you, what is your best 3-year-old filly and your best 3-year-old colt?
Probably my best 3-year-old filly is a filly called New York Girl, I would say. She's going to run in the Guineas, but she's working like a filly that will stay further. So the plan would be maybe that she might end up in an Oaks type race. And as far as 3-year-old colt, probably the most obvious one is a horse called The Graves that won at Leopardstown at the end of last year. He won a group race and is working very well. So he's one to keep an eye on as well.
Nice one.
What about this horse you have on Monday running in the notable, the Rugby Boys, Johnny Murphy's colours, a horse that you got for the G-Rex for the sprint, obviously takes the eye. You have to give Johnny an old mention as well. He loves getting these plugs in for his syndicate on the radio.
Yeah, rugby and racing lads have had a great time with Johnny does a fantastic job with them. So this is a horse they got at the end of last year. He hasn't ran for us yet, but he's working nice. He's a maiden after a lot of runs, which is always a little bit of a worry. But I would be hoping that he's competitive. He'll be competitive off his rating.
Do you feel like you'll always have and always be a dual purpose trainer, or at some point there will just be this natural inclination to become a flat trainer?
Yeah, well, I suppose it's probably happening a little bit already, Ger, that my national hunt string is getting smaller, and it was a good bit smaller last season than the season before, and will probably be a bit smaller next season again than last season. So it is gradually leaning towards the flat.
Why is that, Joseph?
Well, I suppose it's more lucrative, Johnny. The horses can race for much better prize money, and you can travel all over the world, really, if you're lucky to have a good horse, you know.
It's very interesting you say that because, obviously you've had amazing success over jumps, multiple grade 1 success. But is it possibly you're going slightly the way of your dad in terms of your career trajectory, in that he ended up basically training flat horses wholly?
Yeah, well, I suppose ultimately you train the horses that come into the yard. So if you get more flat horses into the yard, you're going to be training more flat horses and vice versa. So, but that is certainly probably the way I would like it to go, rather than expanding the national hunt string too much. I really enjoyed the national hunt string, and I love having the national hunt horses, and I'd like to think I could always have a number of them, but I don't see ourselves expanding the national hunt string, and if anything, it'll probably get smaller over the next 2 years.
What's something I found as well, considering, like, we'll say since I sort of got into racing maybe 15 years ago, there was absolute fascination in those days with jumps horses in Ireland, and the flat was it was grand, but Ireland was considered, this is jumps country. But I found personally myself, I don't know what you think of this, but since the advent of Dundalk, and since maybe jumps racing became so competitive at the top level in Ireland, like really, really strong, that owners actually now seem more inclined to get a horse in the flat, less complications in terms of injuries. You can run at Dundalk all year round, and maybe you have a better chance of getting a winner at a lower level.
Yeah, well, I suppose the national hunt side is hugely competitive, but the flat racing is also very competitive. But you are 100% right. If you or a bunch of lads get a horse in training, ultimately what you want is a couple of good days out, plenty of action, and the flat horses do get to race more often, and a lot of cases they can race for more money if you're lucky enough that they can step up the grades a little bit. So I think you're right, flat racing has a big following, and there's lots of syndicates and lots of people getting involved, and I think it's very important that going forward people continue to get involved in racing at that level on both flat and national hunt.
We had a text in, wonder what you think is going to happen in the Guineas weekend. What do you like in the 2,000 Guineas?
Yeah, well, I suppose insofar as the colts, it comes down to Pina Tubo. He's been he was an exceptional 2-year-old, and he if he brings his 2-year-old form to Newmarket, he's obviously going to be incredibly hard to beat. The one question mark is his size, and he's smaller than a lot of his competitors, and if they've matured more than him or better than him to catch up with him. But it's going to be a great race, and Pina Turbo looked to star in the making last year, so it'll be interesting to see what he can do this season.
Do you think he's going to train on?
I think ultimately, Johnny, people say about horses being big and small, but if they're good enough, they're big enough, and he was really, really good last year. So he is going to be incredibly hard to beat.
Yeah, and I suppose just in terms of the season itself, what have you? Is the program the program has come out now? Have you been able to sort of formulate plans? Because I think people have no idea of how problematic it is for you and Kevin Blake and the lads to actually plan. Keeping horses apart, putting them together, and finding the right race for them, predicting what the ground might be. And that's in a regular year, not to mind this year when we've had a compressed season. So have you a reasonable plan in place at this stage and you're happy enough?
Yeah, we do. And I don't ever really mind too much running horses against each other, Johnny. But I suppose the first thing I always try to do is to get their first run of the year out of the way and give them a nice run, and you have something to work with going forward from there. So we'll try to do that with as many horses as we can over the next few weeks. Place them in a race that we think is suitable, and hopefully they run well, and then we'll work from there. And the thought is that they would improve then on through the season. So it's still going to be a long season. There's still a lot of races to be run and won, and we hope that the horses that we run this week will still be there in November in good shape.
What will your jockey situation be this year?
Yeah, well, I'm very lucky. I have a bunch of good lads. So Declan McDonough is here a couple of days a week. Obviously, Shane Cross was a very good rider. He's rode for us a good bit over the last few years. Eddie Greatrex is here full time from the UK. We have Trevor Whelan, who had a couple of rides over the winter for us. We'll use them lads plenty. We'll also use the like of Wayne and Seamus when they're available. And I'm very lucky to have a very strong bunch of apprentices.
Just one last thing on the point that Johnny was talking about there in terms of planning stuff out for the rest of the year. It always feels to me like there's a weird kind of mathematical language involved in trying to place horses in the right race, given that you want to make sure that they're up against competition they have a chance of beating, and that they're over specifically the right distance, and that they're actually ready to go at that point that you get them in an entry. Given that the season is going to be condensed and also then slightly expanded, your maths brain is going to have to be working a bit of overtime. Is that actually quite an enjoyable challenge, an intellectual challenge that you face, as well as the kind of sporting challenge of making sure that they're fit? That this is a kind of completely different side of your brain that you have to use? Yeah,
it's absolutely key. Jared, placing the horse in the right races is probably has the biggest bearing on the number of winners that you have every year than anything. So I really enjoy it. I really enjoy going through the program book and the different options and trying to figure out what is the optimum conditions for such a horse, and trying to figure out what race will suit best. So it's absolutely key, and I really enjoy it.
Do you look for patterns? Is that the key thing to success?
I suppose insofar as you get to know the horse, which is the most important thing, and his past form and how he's been training at home, and some of the feedback or some of the comments that the jockeys have given you, and you try to put it all together, I suppose, subconsciously, and then you try to find the right race. But I think it's very important that you have a lot of options, and not to be afraid to try something new.
Yeah. Joseph, it's great to have you on again. Thanks a million. Best of luck for the rest of the season. It's always brilliant having you on. Great insight into what it's actually like and what you're going through at the moment. So very excited to see what kind of a 2020 you have. Thanks a million.
Thanks very much, sir. That's
Joseph O'Brien with us. So he's very honest and forthright. Johnny, you're still there, are you?
I am, yeah. I actually had a final question for Joseph, but you just rudely cut me off there. So I was going to ask him who was a better rider, him or Donncha?
Well,
he's obviously gone, is he? Yeah. He will be encouraged, though. Anthony Van Dyke, who I think was Aidan's first runner in England, ran an absolute blinder there in in a Group 1 mile-and-a-half race. Really, really nice start to the season. And obviously, Ger, we're trying to figure out where the O'Brien horses are, but he comfortably beat Stradivarius and finishing second to a good horse. So I think that's encouraging in terms of where Aidan's horses are, in terms of obviously the 2-3-year-old classics this weekend. And it's just fantastic that, you can mock me from now on about tipping losers rather than you can mock me about a losing run that took place several months ago. And we actually have racing back, and it is actually a bit of a buzz.
Well, it says here, Irish racing returns this Monday with racing from Naas, and Tote are looking forward to welcoming their customers to the tote.com to follow the action. This week for the Tote Irish Injured Jockeys Fund, we have a choice for Johnny. Does he want to bank a €100 donation for the Irish Injured Jockeys Fund and feel his way back into racing, or does he want to jump in and punt on a likely runner at Naas? The fund stands at €1,540, and I know what you're going to do because you've been whining there in the background. Go on.
Who comes up with this nonsense? I mean, ease back in. Like, I mean, if a prisoner meets his wife and he hasn't seen her in 6 years, you're not going to ease back in. You're going to give her a big embrace, and you're ready to go. I'm not going to ease back in. Definitely not. Definitely not. Can I not go with the horse in the Guineas? No.
You can do what you want. You can do what you want.
Well,
a big embrace is
Guineas. Big embrace is going on. It feels like we're coming out of prison because the racing's back. Country's opening up. I'm going to go with Jessica Harrington's filly in the Guineas on Sunday, Mill Isle, because of a little chancy sort of price, 6-1 maybe on the tote, something like that. She's never run over the mile, but her performance in winning over 6 at Newmarket at the end of last season, it's worth having a look, Ger. Because if you'd backed her on the day, I think she was 16-1. You'd almost at no stage did you think she was going to win. She never travelled. She's related to a lot of stout stayers, so I think the mile should suit. And a little Dickie Bird tells me that they're confident. So Mill Isle, I think, could beat Love, an Irish 1-2, as it lashes rain here in Dublin. Mill Isle to beat Love in the Guineas on Sunday, but Mill Isle is my selection, €100 win.
What kind of odds are you looking at?
Yeah, like 6s or something like that. Quadrilateral is favoured a filly by Frankel, who's unbeaten, but wouldn't have an awful lot in the hand of Love based on their run at the end of the season. I spoke to Shamie Heffernan during the week. Love seems to have come on very well. He was, you don't call a horse Love unless, you have something going on, and this is a good filly as well.
We've got to stop picking horses on the basis of their names. This seems I'm actually
not picking horse, so I'm just saying, normally Sue Magnus, you don't name them Love or Giant's Causeway or Rocket Gibraltar unless there's something going on there. You don't call a terrible horse Love. I mean, it's not right, is it?
Enda is in my ear here saying, have you got something on your mind? This lockdown, we're reaching the end of it here now. You're talking about a married prisoner. Is there anything subconsciously working on?
Lots of bizarre analogies going on there. I think, on
your side.
Yeah, I'm going to have to think further about this. But the Guineas on Saturday, is going to be an absolute cracker. Pinatubo, we're all excited. That magical day at the Curragh last year, Pat Mullen fundraiser day, possibly the best day racing I ever have. It was obviously lit up in an equine front by Pinatubo. But the only thing is, Jerry, he did run at Newmarket after that. He wasn't nearly as impressive, which is a slight concern for me. So I'm possibly thinking of taking him on, but it's going to be a belter of a race, and you get racing back, and then within 6 days you have the Guineas, so happy days.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? I think everybody hasn't quite woken up to the fact yet that we're going to be it's going to be immediately very intense, and it's going to be intense for the rest of the summer because everything is concertinaed in together, which is actually great for sports fans, really.
Yeah, there's thunder in the background here now, which is, we've had all sorts of weather today, badly needed rain. It's great for sports fans. I mean, my Astro group, as of the last hour, I think we're planning to return next week. We will look like the over 75s lads and Father Ted at this stage, but we'll give it a go. And I think, it's dawning on all sports people that, the Premier League is going to be back shortly. Hopefully, sport in Ireland, I think, will probably be accelerated in advance of what's happened today. It seems like things are moving quickly. It's still early days, but to have racing back, and in fairness for people in the industry as well, and for the betting industry, you think, the evil bookmakers and all that, but the betting shops employ an awful lot of staff on a sort of a working wage, and they do want to get back to work, and just to have racing back, it's fantastic. Racing has a real opportunity here as well because there's so little sport on. It has a case to, a chance to showcase what it's about, and I think we could benefit from this crisis in that regard. But as I said at the top of the show, I would hope that trainers can go racing up to a certain age, obviously with the government regulations, but I would hope owners can return to as well, because I think things are opening up.
Yeah, a reminder, Friday Night Racing on Off the Ball, brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Love every racing moment. Visit hri.ie, or you can follow the Twitter account at HRI Racing, and the hashtag is every racing moment. You'll get more details there on the various things that HRI have been doing. Obviously, they ran safely behind closed doors for 10 meetings in March. The protocols have been further strengthened to include 48-hour health screening and temperature checks for everybody. Only key personnel as it stands required to run racing will be allowed to go, so that's jockeys, trainers, stable staff, medics and officials. And of course, safety will remain in the guiding principle, and the protocols are to protect everybody who has to go racing. So those people who are going racing will feel safe to do so, and it does look as if things are slowly going to be returning to some sense of normality over the next while. And yeah, racing is back. It's been a long time coming. And Johnny, you're free to go. Thanks very much. Whatever it is whatever it is that's on your mind that was making you blush there for the first time in your life, best of luck with it.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I do have. I'll have a few things for you at Naas to look forward to. So I'll be in touch on the old WhatsApp as well. Little tidbits of information coming in from here and there as racing resumes on Monday. And do spare a thought, Ger, for the grounds people as well, who've had to deal with no rain for 2 months and have had to keep the track safe. So all the particularly the tracks in the east, the ground staff will have done an amazing job to keep it nice ground. And their prayers have been answered with the storm in the background. The perfect end to a brilliant Friday Night Racing for you here this week. Friday Night Racing and Off the Ball, brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Love every racing moment. Visit hri.ie. We stream live every Friday afternoon from 3 o'clock across all of our social channels. The best place to get us is the shiny new OTB Sports app, which is available in the App Store, whichever type of App Store you want. Just search OTB Sports for it, and you can get us there. You can also get us at 8 o'clock every Friday evening on the Off the Ball show on News Talk. We'll see you next week. Enjoy the racing. Good luck.